Did you know that nearly 45% of people believe they have experienced some form of supernatural encounter? Shadows moving when no one is there, unexplained whispers in the dead of night, a sudden chill in the air that raises every hair on your body. Maybe you felt it too. What if I told you that some places hold memories so dark, so twisted, that they leave an imprint on reality itself? They say that fear is just our mind playing tricks on us. But what if it's not? What if the nightmares we dismiss as fiction are in fact warnings? Now imagine this. You stumble upon an old, dust-covered diary in the attic of a forgotten mansion. Its leather cover is cracked with age, and as you flip through the fragile pages, you realize something terrifying. It doesn't just tell a story, it tells your story. Each entry describes your worst nightmares, the ones you've never spoken out loud. And then, in the very last entry, it describes something that hasn't happened yet. Something horrifying that will happen tonight. Would you keep reading? Or would you run while you still can? It's already too late. There's something about scary stories that pulls us in, something we can't resist. Maybe it's the thrill of the unknown, the feeling of standing at the edge of a dark abyss, knowing that something might be lurking just out of sight. Or maybe it's something deeper, something primal. Think about it. Since the dawn of time, we have gathered around fires, whispering tales of the creatures that lurk in the shadows, of the spirits that walk among us when the veil between worlds grows thin. These stories weren't just for entertainment. No, they were warnings. Lessons carved into the fabric of our fears, meant to keep us safe from the things we dared not name. But here's the paradox. While we tell ourselves these stories to protect us, we also crave them. We lean in closer when the storyteller lowers their voice. Our pulse quickens when we hear a floorboard creak in an empty room. We can't help but imagine, what if it were real? And then when the story is over, we try to shake off the fear. We tell ourselves that it was just a tale, just a trick of the imagination. We laugh nervously, glancing over our shoulders as we turn off the lights. But deep down, a small part of us isn't so sure, because when the world is silent, when the clock strikes 12 and the house settles into eerie stillness, that's when the stories return. The whispers in the dark, the flicker of movement in your peripheral vision, the unshakable feeling that you're not alone. That's when you remember the tale you just heard, the one that's just a story, and yet somehow you still find yourself sleeping with the lights on. Tonight I'm going to tell you one of those stories, one that will linger in your mind long after the video ends. One that might just keep you up until the early hours of the morning. Are you ready? Every nightmare has a beginning, every horror a first step. And sometimes it starts with something as simple as curiosity, a choice, small, innocent, yet powerful enough to change everything. In the quiet town of Ravenswood, there was an old house, a house no one dared enter. It had stood on the edge of town for as long as anyone could remember, abandoned, its windows black like soulless eyes watching the world, a place that whispered secrets to those who listened and screamed warnings to those who dared ignore them. Locals called it the Holloway House. Stories swirled around it like autumn leaves caught in an endless gust. Some claimed it had been a home for a reclusive widow who vanished without a trace. Others swore it was a place where dark rituals had been performed long ago. The truth? No one really knew. But everyone agreed on one thing. No one who stepped inside ever left quite the same. And yet, despite the warnings, despite the stories, there was always someone who couldn't resist the pull of the unknown. Someone who wanted to prove the legends wrong. This time, that someone was Ethan Calloway. Ethan wasn't afraid of ghost stories. In fact, he found them amusing. The way people let fear control them, the way myths twisted into folklore over time, It was all just the result of overactive imaginations, he thought. So when he and his best friend, Darren, came across the house one October afternoon, Ethan barely hesitated before stepping through the rusted gate. "Darren, dude, I don't like this. People say weird things happen here. Ethan, people say a lot of things. Doesn't make them true." So when he and his best friend Darren came across the house one October afternoon, Ethan barely hesitated before stepping through the rusted gate. "Darren, dude, I don't like this. People say weird things happen here. Ethan, people say a lot of things. Doesn't make them true." The front porch sagged under their weight, its wood soft with decay. As Ethan reached for the door handle, a gust of wind pushed the door open before he could touch it, revealing a yawning darkness within. He glanced at Darren, who shifted uneasily but said nothing. It was just the wind, Ethan told himself, just the wind. Inside, dust clung to the air, swirling in the faint shafts of sunlight filtering through the broken windows. The house smelled of time itself, of forgotten things and memories that had been locked away for too long. The furniture, draped in sheets, stood like ghosts frozen in place, and the wallpaper peeled in long curling strips, revealing the bones of the house beneath. And then something caught Ethan's eye. In the far corner of the room, barely visible beneath a pile of debris, was an old wooden chest. Unlike everything else in the house, it wasn't covered in dust. As if someone had been here recently, as if someone had opened it, and then left in a hurry. "Darren, maybe we should go." Ethan ignored him. His fingers brushed over the lid of the chest. Cold. Almost too cold for wood. He hesitated, only for a second, before lifting it open. Inside, wrapped in delicate, crumbling cloth, was an old diary. Ethan picked it up, feeling a strange pulse of energy travel through his fingertips. The leather cover was cracked, the pages yellowed, filled with handwritten notes in a dark, slanted script. The ink, though faded, carried the weight of something ancient, something that should have been forgotten. And at the very top of the first page, written in a hurried, almost frantic hand, were the words that made Ethan's mouth go dry. "Super, do not read this aloud. Some doors should never be opened. Some stories should never be told. But curiosity is a powerful thing. And sometimes it leads us straight into the arms of something that was waiting for us all along." Ethan ran his fingers over the first page, his pulse quickening. The ink had faded, but the words remained clear enough to read. The name scrawled at the top sent a strange chill down his spine. Eleanor Holloway, 1876. Darren. "Dude, we shouldn't be messing with this." Ethan ignored him, his eyes scanning the opening lines. The diary wasn't just a collection of thoughts, it was a confession, a warning, a record of something terrible that had happened in this house over a century ago. And as he read, the past began to creep into the present. Eleanor Holloway, VO. "I write these words with trembling hands, for I know I am running out of time. The darkness has found me. It watches from the corners, whispering, waiting. I am no longer alone in this house, and soon I will no longer be myself." Eleanor Holloway was the last surviving member of the Holloway family. Her parents had died under mysterious circumstances, her father vanishing one winter's night, her mother found lifeless in her bed, her face frozen in an expression of unspeakable terror. With no other relatives to claim the estate, Eleanor inherited the Holloway house, but what should have been her sanctuary quickly became her prison. Eleanor Holloway, VO. It started with the voices. At first they were nothing more than murmurs in the night, soft, indistinct, but they grew louder, closer. They call my name now. They tell me things I should not know, secrets I never should have learned. Eleanor wrote of the strange occurrences that plagued the house, of doors slamming shut on their own, of furniture moving in the dead of night, of waking up to find deep scratches on the walls. Scratches she knew she had not made. But the most chilling entries spoke of something far worse. Eleanor Holloway, VO. The mirror in the East Hall. It is not a reflection, it is a window. And something is looking back at me. Eleanor Holloway became obsessed with the mirror. She covered it with cloth, tried to avoid looking at it, but no matter what she did, she could feel its presence. And then one night she made a mistake. Eleanor Holloway, VO. I looked into the mirror and I saw myself, but it wasn't me. What Eleanor saw in the mirror remains a mystery, but her final diary entries paint a picture of unravelling sanity. She began writing less about the strange occurrences and more about her own fear of herself, of how she would wake up in places she didn't remember going to, how she would find messages written in her own handwriting that she had no memory of writing, messages that weren't warnings but instructions. Eleanor Holloway, VO. They say it is my house, that it belongs to me, but the truth is I belong to it. Eleanor Holloway was never seen again. Some say she fled the house, driven mad by what she had seen. Others believe she never left at all, that she is still there, trapped inside the walls, inside the mirrors, waiting for someone to find her story and finish what she started. Ethan. Darren, I think we should go. Darren, we can't. Because the diary wasn't finished. Because the last page was still being written. And because somewhere in the darkness of the house, something had started moving. Some places hold their secrets too well. Some horrors are patient, waiting for the right moment to reach out, to take what they've been promised. And sometimes the past doesn't stay buried. Sometimes it watches, it listens, and it waits for you to notice it. Ethan, Darren? Something's wrong, Darren. Yeah, no kidding. We need to get the hell out of here. But the moment they turned toward the door, the house shifted. The hallway they had come through was gone. Or at least it didn't look the same anymore. The wallpaper was peeling, covered in something dark. The air smelled of damp earth and old decay. The door was still there, but it felt wrong, as if opening it wouldn't lead them outside, but somewhere else entirely. Ethan, this isn't real. This isn't real. But the house had already decided. They had read too much. They had seen too much. And now it was time to show them the truth. Darren, what the hell was that? Ethan, the mirror? At the end of the hallway, just barely catching the moonlight, was the mirror. The one Eleanor had written about, the one she had warned them about. But the glass wasn't reflecting them anymore. Darren, no, I am not looking at that thing. Ethan, Darren, I think someone's inside. It wasn't just a reflection anymore. It was a scene. A different room, old-fashioned, dimly lit by candlelight. And standing in the centre was Eleanor Holloway. Eleanor Holloway, you shouldn't be here. Ethan's breath hitched as Eleanor slowly turned her head toward them. Her eyes, they weren't human anymore. They were hollow black voids that seemed to pull him in. Eleanor Holloway, it knows you now. It won't let you leave. And then she moved, not like a person, not like anything that should exist. One moment she was standing still. The next she was rushing toward the glass, her hands slamming against the inside of the mirror. Ethan, run! But it was too late, because as Darren yanked on the door handle, the mirror shattered, not outward but inward. The shards collapsed into the darkness beyond the glass, as if the mirror had become a doorway. And from that darkness, something crawled out. Darren, this isn't happening. This isn't happening. But the figure from the mirror was already here. It moved toward them with jerky, unnatural motions, like a puppet with its strings yanked too hard. Its face was wrong, shifting, flickering between Eleanor's and something else. Something older. Figure from the mirror, it's your turn now, and then darkness. And when Ethan woke up, he was still in the house. But something was different. Ethan, Darren, where are you? The house was quiet now. Too quiet. The hallway was gone. The mirror was gone. And so was Darren. Ethan, no, this isn't real. Darren! He stumbled forward, the air thick with something he couldn't name. And then he saw it. The diary, lying open on the floor. There was a new entry, one that hadn't been there before, one written in his own handwriting. Ethan, it's my house now. It belongs to me. But the truth is, I belong to it. And as he read those final words, his reflection in the glass of the nearest window smiled back at him. But Ethan hadn't smiled at all. Some stories don't end, some simply wait. They wait for new pages to be written, for new voices to speak their names. And as for Ethan, well, Ethan's story had only just begun. In the days that followed, the search for Ethan and Darren made the local news. Their car was found parked outside the Holloway house, engine still warm, driver's door left ajar, but the boys themselves gone. News reporter. Authorities continue their search for two missing young men last seen near the abandoned Holloway estate. The house, known for its dark history, has long been a site of local legend. The camera crews came, the reporters whispered about curses and hauntings, but the case went cold. There was nothing left behind except an open diary with pages that refused to stay blank for long. Weeks passed, then months. People forgot, as they always do. But the Holloway house didn't. It never forgets. And then one evening, a new car pulled up the old dirt road. A group of thrill-seekers, armed with flashlights and cameras, stepping past the keep-out signs, laughing nervously. They had heard the stories, they had read the legends, but they didn't believe them. Young man, dude, this is going to be sick. Imagine how many views we'll get. But as they crossed the threshold, stepping onto the rotting floorboards, the air grew thick. The laughter faded, and in the dim light of their phone screens they saw something. A reflection in the dust-covered glass of a nearby window. Young woman. Who is that? The reflection didn't match them. It stood slightly behind them. And in the dim light of their phone screens, they saw something. A reflection in the dust-covered glass of a nearby window. Young woman. Who is that? The reflection didn't match them. It stood slightly behind them. A figure they didn't recognize. But we do. Ethan Holloway, or whatever was left of him. Some houses don't just keep secrets, they become them. And sometimes when you step inside, you never step back out. And now the question is, what do you believe? Was Ethan truly lost to the Holloway curse? Or is there something even darker lurking within those walls, waiting for its next visitor? But maybe, just maybe, you have your own story to tell. A time when something unexplainable happened to you. A shadow that shouldn't have been there. A whisper when no one else was around. A place you shouldn't have gone, but did anyway. Drop your own terrifying tales in the comments below. I'll be watching, and if you want more stories that send chills down your spine, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because trust me, the scariest stories, they're the ones that find you. Subscribe if you dare.